Welcome to PixelTunes Radio, episode 17. I'm Mike.
And I'm Ed.
And you are listening to our RPGs battle theme. It's so specific.
These are only battle themes from RPGs.
Why did I come up with this?
Well, it's fun, man.
Yeah.
Our indie episode was kind of chill and laid back.
Yeah,
and
it was.
This kind of like forces us to get really heart-pumping songs in there.
I'm pumped. I'm stoked. I'm psyched.
Fighting some random enemies along the way.
Doing those dudes some injustice.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Wouldn't we be doing justice? I mean, we're usually the good guys in the RPG.
Doing those dudes.
Yeah. Doing them in the justice.
Yes. So what's been going on with you for the past 2 weeks?
Summer's coming to an end.
Wah, wah.
So, yeah. No, summer's actually, it's crazy for me because, like I said, I work for a school system. So all the teachers are coming back. The job gets ridiculous for a couple of months, and then it slows down around the holiday season. So, but, the wife's going to work for the first time in like 10 years.
Woohoo!
And kids going to preschool, and the other one's starting 4th grade. It's crazy.
That's
super
nuts.
duper crazy.
Big changes for Ed.
Yeah. Game-wise, I've been kind of fooling around with more of my retro consoles, getting my son into some more retro stuff.
Cool.
I've been actually really getting into the Sharp X68000. I found a good emulator and a whole collection of
You
games.
need to send that to me.
So yeah, I've been checking out a lot of that stuff, coming up with a lot of cool music from that system that I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody in the future.
Nice.
So, yeah. What's been going on with you?
Not much. I finished my living room, so that's pretty much done. Just gotta somehow finagle some furniture in some way, shape, or form.
IKEA.
Yeah.
IKEA all the way.
No. Well, I'm saying to myself, I'm drinking out of a lovely PixelTunes Radio mug.
It's true.
Maybe if we sold like 1 million of these.
A dozen mugs a day.
Yeah, a dozen mugs.
For the next 12 years?
Yeah, for the next 12 years. Yeah. Hey. Listen, you gotta get furniture one way or another.
It's true. I'll say, if you go to IKEA, you can get everything for like $3.
True. Other than that, just work and, of course, games. I picked up the first 4 Halo games. So, Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3.
That's surprising coming from you.
I've actually owned Halo 1 for a while, and I've beaten it once, and it was one of those games where I was playing through it, and I was just like, oh my god, I just want to beat this. Like, just get me done with this game. But I started reading up on the 4th game, and I started watching some cutscenes, and I was like, this story looks really cool. Like, I want to check it out. But I didn't want to be completely lost, so I was like, screw it. I'll just buy Halo 2 and 3 and 4. So, yeah, it's a little weird for me, because I'm not really a shooter guy. I like Perfect Dark and GoldenEye and that type of stuff, but, and Doom, but, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Right now, I'm currently replaying Halo 1. And I'm also trying to sit down and actually tackle 2 games right now. Kirby for the 3DS, the new one that came out. Really good. I'm almost all the way through it. I definitely recommend it. It's a little easy, but it's fun. It's really, really fun. And the other game I would say would be Shantae. So I'm trying to get into the Shantae. I've owned all the first Shantae for a while on the Game Boy Color, and it's a great game. Definitely recommended. It's developed by WayForward Technologies. And
there's the one podcast per mention for Way Forward.
Yeah. Hey, you gotta do these guys some justice. So, trying to play through Shantae. The problem is that I play it usually late at night when I come home from work. So I'll start playing it and I'll start falling asleep while I'm playing it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, don't play Shantae while you're in the bed.
We've got the opposite problem.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I have started playing Beyond Two Souls for the PS3.
Oh, okay.
And it's done by Quantic Dream, the guys who did Heavy Rain.
Yep.
And we're having a ton of fun with it.
Yeah.
And the really cool thing is that you can hook up a mobile device as the second player alongside using a standard PS3 controller.
That's cool.
So she's not a big video gamer. I mean, she's used to playing games on an iPad. So she'll sit there with the iPad, we'll load up the Beyond app on it, and then you can be the second player
really
just by using the touchscreen. So it's very intuitive for her, and of course I'm using a PS3 controller, which is intuitive.
Yeah.
But it's actually been keeping us up later because we're playing and we're getting into it, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like, we gotta go to bed.
Yeah.
But no, it's a really excellent game. If you liked Heavy Rain, you'll absolutely love this one. Even if you thought Heavy Rain was a bit slow, this one's a bit more action-paced. So
cool.
Let's talk a little bit about RPGs.
Yeah. What is a RPG?
Yeah, I mean, I think we know what RPGs are for the most part. I mean, we're classifying RPGs here as more the traditional style RPGs, and maybe a little bit of the stuff that we have is involved some strategy RPGs.
Yeah.
But we don't really talk about RPGs too much on the podcast because neither one of us are super into them. So what's your...
Yeah, I like RPGs. Don't get me wrong. I'm super specific with what kind of RPGs I like. So they have to be turn-based, they have to be Japanese, and they have to have a for the most part, very small cast of characters. So no more than like 10 people, tops. Because I want to get invested in the characters, I want to get invested in the story. And the battle system, I mean, as long as it's fun and it's not too... Like, I'm okay with hammering X just to attack and just doing that over and over. I'm not big into, like, customization. Like, there's a lot of games now that do, like... Oh, you want to build your weapons? I'm like, I don't care about that. Just give me a sword, dude. Like, whatever. Yeah. So I'm, like, really specific when it comes to the RPGs. And you're going to look at some of the RPGs that I've picked, and you're gonna know exactly, like, you're gonna see, oh, this is Mike's pick. Because it's like a Super Nintendo or PS1 RPG where there's like a cast of 10 people and it's relatively small. With some exceptions, which we'll talk about later. But what about you for RPGs?
You know, it's
you're
probably...
not an RPG guy.
Along with sports, it's probably my second least favorite genre. I mean, I've played RPGs where I've enjoyed them, and I've played them from beginning to end. I don't see an ad for an upcoming RPG and go, holy crap, I've got to get that game. I don't have the patience for it. I will always gravitate towards the shooter, the beat 'em up, the arcade racer, the instant action. I find levels of depth in those games that a lot of people usually don't because I just haven't so experienced with them. So I can get that kind of feeling from like a beat 'em up that some people might get from an RPG. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but
I know.
But for an RPG, I mean, with my limited time, I only got like an hour a day to play it or less. Things go so slowly. I can't devote 7 or 8 hours on a day or 4 or 5 hours a day to be able to get through an RPG in an amount of time where it makes sense to do so. So
yes, the qualms of adulthood.
Yeah, and even when I was younger, like I didn't really get into them that much. I don't know. Maybe it's just my ADD. It's just tough for me. I get distracted. I'll get into a game and I'll get like 3 or 4 hours into a game and I'll like say, oh look, this shooter came out, and I'll start playing the shooter. I'll completely forget that I even started playing the RPG because it just never grabbed me enough to go back into it. So a lot of these tracks that I got were either A, the RPGs that I did play and enjoy, or B, were recommended to me by people who regularly stop by my thread where I release all my soundtracks, and I'll be giving shouts out to those guys and which songs that they suggested to me because a lot of them are really good tracks. Why don't we start in with our first song? I believe it's Lufia 2.
Yeah, Lufia 2. So this is the Super Nintendo game. It's called Lufia 2: Rise of the Sinistrals. Every time I hear that, I think of cinnamon, like cinnamony...
Rise of the Cinnabuns.
Yeah, Rise of the Cinnabuns. This game was, the soundtrack was composed by Yasunori Shiono, and he has mostly worked on RPGs, actually. He did all the Lufia games, so Lufia and the Fortress of Doom, the first one, Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals. I did Lufia Curse of the Sinistrals, which is actually a rebirth or reimagining of the original Lufia 2.
Nice.
Which is really cool. It's actually a really fun DS game, if you're interested, if anybody is interested in a nice little fun action RPG. But this is a traditional RPG starring a hero named Maxim, and you basically go through, it's like most RPGs where you start with a small party and the characters walk all over the map, and you can go into dungeons and fight monsters and get items and all sorts of cool stuff.
Sounds like an RPG of the week to me.
Yeah, pretty much. So this track, it gets your blood pumping, man. I love this track. This is a song called Battle Theme 3. Most of the songs that we've picked all have the word battle in them, amazingly. Or fighting, or battle.
I mean, they're battle songs, so it just makes sense.
So it makes sense. So yeah, Battle Theme 3, Lufia 2. Guys, check it out. It's a really good track.
Ouch! My neck hurts from banging my head to that song too much.
That was a great song.
Oh, I love that track.
Oh, man.
That one is Natural Killer Cyborg from the Game Boy Advance game Mother 3, which is the spiritual sequel to everybody's favorite RPG in the Super Nintendo, Earthbound. Well, except for you, of course, because you're a communist.
I am a communist, yeah.
So, that one was written by Shogo Sakai, who single-handedly wrote all 250 songs for that game.
That's a lot of music.
It's probably his best-known work, although he did also do stuff like a lot of the Kirby games, like Kirby's Air Ride, Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland, Squeak Squad on the DS, and, of course, Smash Brothers.
Duh.
Everybody works on Smash Brothers, man.
Dude, I even wrote a track on Smash Brothers.
My mom wrote a track on Smash Brothers.
Your mom's face wrote a track on Smash Brothers. Nice.
And that was the best track on the album, too.
Sick burn.
So he started off back on the Famicom as far back as 1988 with a couple of Japanese releases like Bebop High School and Cobra Command. He did Rampage for the Nintendo, which was pretty cool. A lot of his tracks back then had a very 50s or swing style feel to it, which actually also carries over a lot to the Mother 3 soundtrack.
Not this song.
No, this song is balls to the wall metal. Mm-hmm. So this track takes place very close to the end of the game. And I don't want to give out any spoilers, but the boss that you fight is called a Natural Killer Cyborg. And in Earthbound and Mother 3, normally the enemies you're fighting they're about the size of you, if not maybe a little bit bigger. This thing takes up the entire friggin' screen. It's this giant, bulbous pig with spider legs, and it's a super, super tough battle.
Those are the best bosses.
It's true, and one of the most memorable as well, both because of the music that plays and because of where it is in the game. And the concept behind the battle in Mother 3 is that you can add extra hits to your initial attack by pressing the button in time with the music that's playing in the background. So, you're kind of just jamming on the buttons as that fat drum beat is playing.
Yeah.
So it brings that music into the gameplay even more than just kind of listening to it.
The toms sound great on this song.
Yeah.
And also the bending of the guitar.
It's very realistic, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds really good.
In that game, there's dance, there's Middle Eastern, there's your traditional kind of country-style town music.
Very similar to Earthbound as far as the eclectic nature.
Depending on where you are, the music will change dramatically.
That's cool.
Although with Earthbound, there were multiple composers on that.
True.
So
and this was the only guy that worked on
Mother 3. Sakai just nailed every single genre in that game.
That's sweet.
And like I said, it's one of my favorite games. One of the only RPGs that I really feel a real connection to. So.
Cool.
So that was Natural Killer Cyborg.
Yeah.
So next up is a song from Valkyrie Profile from the infamous and prolific Motoi Sakuraba.
This dude has written every game soundtrack ever.
Oh yeah. I mean, among people who really, really enjoy Japanese soundtracks, Sakuraba's probably one of the most popular and considered one of the best guys out there.
I mean, we were scrolling through the list of music that this guy's done, and we're like, I've played that game, and I'm just like, this guy has written every, he must have been busy. He must have been insanely busy to write this many soundtracks.
Yes.
So.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he did El Viento for the Genesis. We were actually playing that a couple days ago, and we were remarking on how good the soundtrack was.
Mm-hmm. He's also done a ton of other stuff as well. He's done music for anime and video games and all different types of things. He was also in you said it was a progressive rock band, right?
Yeah, called Deja Vu.
Deja Vu.
Yeah, he mainly plays keyboards.
Okay.
So even when he's not composing the music to games, he will do guest keyboard performances in songs that other composers have written. I believe he probably did Smash Brothers as well at some point.
I'm sure he did, yeah. This game, Valkyrie Profile, is a PlayStation 1 RPG. It was also ported to the PSP at a later time. And this version of the track that we're going to listen to is from the PS1 version.
Right. The PSP version has a very similar soundtrack, but the instrumentation is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I just preferred, because my experience with the game, as with most people, started on the PS1. And this track is called Battle with God Syndrome. Very unique take on the whole battle theme. Really good, really amped up song that kind of gets your blood pumping, and very well orchestrated synth hits with just really tight drums. The snare on this sounds really good.
The whole soundtrack for the game itself is kind of like symphonic mixed with techno. It's really kind of unique, but Sakuraba pulls it all together very well. I just wanted to mention that also on some soundtracks, you'll find this particular track under the name Battle with Shadow Gods.
Oh, okay.
So it can be under God Syndrome or
So
depending on what soundtrack you're looking at. Yep.
So the story on this one, the whole entire game is based on Norse mythology. It has one of the saddest game intros I've ever seen.
I'm already crying.
Yeah, seriously. Like, you start off in this field, and you're just like, you're in this field of basically like poison flowers or poison poppies.
Field of Dreams.
Yeah, Field of Dreams. And you're playing as this girl named Lenneth, and you're just like, what's that smell? Poof. You're just like out, and you're dead. And so basically the whole game
Does the Wicked Witch of the West come up and be like, sleep, my pretties?
No, the way that it goes with the game is you start off as Lenneth, so you get brought up to heaven, and, well, it's not really heaven, it's more like Valhalla, I guess
That's
you could say.
That's the Norse version of heaven, so.
And so you get recruited as the Valkyrie, and your whole purpose is to recruit for this, like, big battle. You recruit a bunch of fallen heroes who... They call them the Einherjar. That's...
God bless you.
Yeah, no, I know. And so that's pretty much it. And so there's this like really crazy battle at the end with this enemy between these two parties, the Aesir, or I guess that's how you pronounce it, and the near Ragnarok. I haven't actually gotten through this whole game. What's crazy about this game is that it's timed, so it's kind of like Majora's Mask, where like you have to, if you play it through, there's save states, but the way that you have to play the game, you have to beat it in like the correct order and the correct way and everything. And if you don't, you get game over and you pretty much have to start the whole game all over again, because if you screw up too much, you won't be able to get through the game the right way. And in this game, you can actually recruit like a lot of characters. So this is very rare for me to be into, because I picked this track, so it's very rare for me to be into an RPG where you can get like, 50 characters or 100 characters or whatever. Like, that's one of the reasons why I didn't like Chrono Cross, but I loved Chrono Trigger. Despite the fact that you can get that many characters, I typically started with a small party, and what's really cool is they do talk a lot about, like, there's really excellent voice acting and the story is really well written. So it's definitely recommended. I would highly check it. I would highly check it out.
You would highly check it out?
I would highly check it out.
Highly recommend checking it out?
Yeah,
So just for a little bit of perspective here, he did this soundtrack the same year that he did the soundtrack for Mario Golf and Mario Golf Game Boy.
Yeah, he worked for Camelot, actually.
And then he also did Mario Tennis, the Star Ocean RPG. Mm-hmm. I think both of these Star Oceans, which have amazing soundtracks.
Star Ocean 2 is really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Shining the Holy Ark. I mean, there's just tons of amazing games with amazing soundtracks, and I literally cannot figure out how he was able to write so much music in so little time. He's got like 5 or 6 games per year, if not more.
He's got to be one of those kind of guys that just loves music so much that that's just his purpose. He's found his niche, and like, it's not even a job to him.
Yeah.
He just sits down every morning with his cup of coffee or sake or whatever.
He's got a cup of coffee in one hand and a little mini keyboard on the other hand, and he's just reading the newspaper or like playing tunes at the same time, sipping the coffee.
Yeah, it just hits record and he's just like, let me come up with this.
Here's a bass line, alright.
Yeah, sure.
Crazy, crazy stuff. So why don't we take a listen to Battle with God Syndrome?
Sounds like a plan. ladies of Midgar, has this ever happened to you?
Hey there, Tifa. Your tatas are looking pretty terrific today.
You're cruising for a bruising, soldier.
You can show me those globes anytime.
You're such a pig, Shinra scum. I can't beat him up because I'll risk exposing my rebel group, Avalanche. Plus, I was just out for a morning jog and didn't bring any material with me. I wish there was some way I could teach him a lesson without getting arrested.
Well, now you can train him through beatings with Materi Bras.
Materi Bras?
Yes, Materi Bras. A bra that's made entirely of materia. This will let you enact revenge on any oogling ogre of Midgar. Just touch the bra strap to turn it on, and the solar power will enable you to enact a wave of damage without raising attention. Let's watch.
Haha, back for more, lady?
Sure, why not?
Oh no! My pants are on fire! Ah!
With this bra, I don't even have to worry about forgetting my materia. Thanks, Materi Bras. Does this come in smaller sizes? My friend Eris would love to wear one. You bitch!
Now, ladies. There's plenty of Materi Bras to go around, available in all sizes. Currently available in fire, ice, lightning, and coming soon, poison. Get yours today for only 15 gil. Welcome back to PixelTunes Radio.
So I'm gonna be waking up for the next month with that song in my head again.
Yeah, but
anyway.
So good.
Yeah, but you play that game and you hear it so much, it's like you
yeah.
hear it in your sleep. You hear it
Yeah.
while walking down the road. You hear it while you're pooping.
I mean, it's kind of how these games go, though. And
Right.
it's kind of, that's the reason why I think we pick these songs, because you do hear them often. And some of them you don't. Some of them are like final battle themes, like in the case of...
Like Natural Killer Cyborg.
Right, and Lufia too.
Yep.
But we wanted to showcase a song that, is a really popular song that many people have heard. So that was from Final Fantasy VII, and that was just simply fighting.
Fighting! I want to go listen to fighting now.
I want to go fighting now. And so that was composed by the always illustrious, always fantastic Nobuo Uematsu. Actually got a moment to meet this guy.
Sweet.
At MagFest, and he was super nice. He didn't really have much to say, but that's because he had to sign thousands of autographs.
I believe it, man.
Yeah, when I went to MagFest, I met him, and his band, the Earthbound Papas, played, which actually they changed their name, if I recall. I think, maybe. I could be wrong.
Well, I think there was the Black Mages.
That's right. They were the Black Mages, and then they became Earthbound Papas.
But I think there was a lineup change.
There was, yeah. And
when they went from under the others.
Most of the other people that are in the band are also Final Fantasy composers. And so it was a really good show. Earthbound Papas put on a heck of a show. They did play, of course, I believe they played this track, if I recall. Because it's such a popular track. I mean, everybody has heard this song.
Oh yeah, this is the one where it's like, you go to a One Hit Wonders concert and like you'd be freaked out if they didn't play that one song that's on the radio. So
Final Fantasy VII was such a popular game.
Right, and it drew a lot of non-RPG players in to play it. So
absolutely.
This is the one where it's like, if you're going to MagFest, you're not a new Uematsu fan, but you heard that he's playing, you'd be like, oh man, I hope they play that battle theme from Final Fantasy VII,
There's a lot of backlash about this game, which I don't get. I mean...
I think with any game this popular, you're bound to have people that hate it and people that love it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people hate it because it was popular, because they feel that RPGs are kind of like that niche genre, at least in the US, that was kind of like theirs, and they feel like that expanded that genre into more of a mainstream.
I don't know, I never felt that way. Like, well, okay, so I didn't start playing RPGs until I would say Chrono Trigger was my first. So all the other Final Fantasies, I'd heard of them, but I had no interest in them up until 7, actually.
My first RPG was Final Fantasy II.
Oh, was it?
So I was way back in the day.
Yeah. No, mine was Chrono Trigger. I was super pumped. I mean, I remember reading about it on Nintendo Power and being like, this is going to be amazing. And then they had, in Nintendo Power, they had like I guess you could call it like an RPG like corner or like Epic Center or something like that. And
Contra Epic Center?
Yeah. And they had RPGs every single month that they would talk about and introduce. And I think that with Final Fantasy VII, you kind of... So even though it went from Nintendo to Sony for the PlayStation 1, you saw this transition of the wave of RPGs transitioning from Super Nintendo to Sony PlayStation. And I think it's a shame because Nintendo platforms were always the source of RPGs, and then just poof, one day they were gone.
Yeah, and I just think the N64 wasn't capable of handling that kind of stuff. There were some role-playing games out there, but they were very basic stuff.
They were like Quest and, I mean, Zelda, I guess 64. You could consider and sort of an RPG.
And originally Mother 3 was written to be an N64 game.
That's right.
And through whatever reasons, which I think might have been performance-based on the N64, they decided to move the entire game to GBA, which is like going from a console to a handheld is really strange, but
I just don't think it was the right platform because that's when Nintendo started designing controllers specifically for games. So they were like, we're going to make Mario 64. We need an amazing controller that'll be able to play that one game, and then we'll just figure out, we'll adapt. Yeah, and I think that's where things started to go south for Nintendo because they started focusing more on how can we change gameplay. And when I say south, I don't mean that they started tanking as a company because, as always, they've always put out amazing, fantastic titles. But I think the support of third-party developers, they were like, you're building this thing that's very unique and very specific. We want nothing to do with it. You know, we want to continue the legacy that you put forth on like Super Nintendo and Nintendo, where it's like this amount of buttons, this specific gameplay, like this is the controller that you're going to use. And so Nintendo was like, how about motion controls?
Yeah.
And, you know.
And I think as far as the PlayStation, and that this directly relates to Final Fantasy VII, is I think Sony had this thing planned out.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, we've got all these assets, all of these pre-rendered backgrounds, all of this music. It's not going to fit on an N64 cartridge.
Yeah.
You're simply not providing us with enough memory to get done what we want to do.
There's a demo, too. There's a demo of Final Fantasy VII that was originally planned as Final Fantasy VII on the 64, and it just didn't look good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, and even Square needed multiple discs to make Final Fantasy. So that shows you it's like gigabytes worth of information. You can't fit that on a cartridge. I think 512 megs was like the most memory that ever came out on a cartridge, I think, for like Conker's Bad Fur Day. Yeah. So, you know, unfortunately Nintendo just kind of missed the boat when it came to RPGs, but Sony ended up taking up the reins, and we got Final Fantasy VII, which was an amazing game.
That's true, yeah.
So speaking of Square and RPGs, the next track we're going to play is from Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger! I love this song.
Everybody loves the
game.
Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, like I was saying before, this game, Nintendo power sold it to me, basically. I remember reading about it, studying it, drawing the characters on like my little pad in 7th grade. Like, I was pumped for this game. This and Yoshi's Island. And so when this came out, I came out, I believe, in the summer. And I remember picking it up when it came out, and I was just like, I'm gonna play this game forever. And I did, and I beat it several times. I got most of the endings. It has multiple endings. I think it has 12 or 13 endings that you can get. So you get this new game plus option, and so you blow through the game, and then you can start it all over again, but you could still have your same stats, so you can keep leveling up your characters. So
cool.
A lot of really cool replayability with Chrono Trigger. You start out as this character called Chrono, and you go to a fair, and just there's things sort of happen. You start meeting all these new characters and having all these wacky adventures, and
there's time travel involved.
Yeah,
right?
and this came out. This was almost, I guess you could say, like a side thing from Final Fantasy, because Square's bread and butter was Final Fantasy, of course. And so before 7 was being worked on, or probably in the really, really early stages, because this was after Final Fantasy 6 or 3 for Americans had released, they were just starting to work on Final Fantasy 7. So with Chrono Trigger, they were like, let's make this game that's different than Final Fantasy. It has different mechanics and different features, but feels similar to Final Fantasy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but then it also had these kind of character interactions where you can combine different characters' special moves and get an entirely new special move out of it.
So good.
And it was really cool. I mean,
the graphics were great.
The graphics were great. The music was absolutely phenomenal.
Well, there were 3 different composers. So there was Nobuo Uematsu, of course, who worked on all the Final Fantasies pretty much. Before he worked on Final Fantasy VII, he worked on Chrono Trigger. The reason why he worked on Chrono Trigger is because he took over the reins of somebody named Yasunori Matsuda. And he was the primary composer who actually worked himself on this soundtrack to the point where he got so ill that he had to step away from the soundtrack. He actually got hospitalized, if I recall.
Yeah, he was under a lot of stress because he needed to get the game done and he had a hard drive crash and lost over 40 pieces of music. So he ended up stressing himself out so much he ended up with stomach ulcers. So, some other guys had to come in and step in for him. And
it's terrible.
He was able to come back just to see like the end of the game being finished up. Mm-hmm. And he was so emotional over it, he actually broke down into tears while he was watching the ending of the game. So
yeah, well,
it shows you how like emotionally involved you have to be in a game like this in order to compose that much for it. So,
and that final track is a very emotional track in Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching.
It definitely pulls at the heartstrings. But actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that Yasunori Matsuda said in an interview about Chrono Trigger. So he said, and I quote, "I think game music is something that should last with the player. It's interesting because it can't just be some random music, but something that can make its way into the player's heart. In that sense, this not only applies to game music, but I feel very strongly about composing songs that will leave a lasting impression. What I must not forget is that it must be entertaining to those who are listening. I don't think there's much else to it, to be honest. I don't do anything too audacious, so as long as the listeners like it or feel that it's a really great song, then I've done my job."
So he's trying to strike a balance between awesome music and music that fits with the game.
But I think the thing is, the music should last with the player. I think that right there, that really kind of sums up video game music for me. Like, I should be able to listen to a song and be like, I will always remember that song. There are moments in my life where I'll be able to picture that
moment in that
moment
game based on the music.
Exactly, and be able to bring it back to myself and be like, I remember that. I remember that song. I remember where I was when I first heard that song. And so, to me, that's video game music. And so, Yasunori Matsuda has worked on so much stuff. He worked on all the games for the Chrono series, Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. He worked on Xenogears, Xenosaga, Episode 1, and then just a ton of stuff. Radical Dreamers, Mario Party, Bomberman 64, the Legend of Legaia games, Kid Icarus Uprising, Half Minute Hero with everybody else.
That's like the Sony's version of Super Smash Brothers. Everybody worked on Half Minute Hero.
Pretty much. So that's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's listen to this track. This song is from Chrono Trigger. This is Battle 1.
That bass line.
That was Legend of Dragoon.
Yes, it was. Legend of Dragoon was a PlayStation RPG, which is kind of notable for having tracks written by both an American composer and a Japanese composer, neither one of whom worked together in the same room, or I think even communicated at all while they were making the music for the games. So those composers were Dennis Martin and Takao Miratsu, and this particular track was written by Miratsu. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1996, so he hasn't had any real recent games, but he, in the past, was responsible for Jumping Flash, both Jumping Flash games, actually, which are really good. And his last game was in 2000 called Chase the Express. What'd you think about this track?
I really like this track. It's awesome. It's rocking. Kicks butt. Loving it.
Agreed. I like it too.
I'm loving it.
It's not like a real traditional RPG kind of soundtrack. This one has kind of an industrial techno feel to it. And I think a lot of my songs that I picked don't have that traditional RPG feel to it. I know. Well, A, I'm not a fan of symphonic, and B, I'm not a fan of RPGs. So this combination for me, when you said, when you showed up naked on my doorstep wearing nothing but a tie.
Do an RPG episode.
Yeah, I was like, okay. Help? So what I did was I reached out to a bunch of the guys that usually hang around on my forum thread on the Final Fantasy Shrine forums where I have my soundtrack collection, and a guy by the name of Knivesman who's always hanging out in there. We talk a lot about video game stuff over the forum. He's very knowledgeable and has a lot of knowledge on the more modern stuff. I don't think he listened to that much chiptune music before he was introduced to my thread, but he's getting more into that stuff. But anyways, so he talked to his friend Chanard, or Chanard, depending on what nationality.
Chanard!
And so together they recommended this Legend of Dragoon track.
Yeah.
And I took a listen to it and I was like, wow, this is really good stuff. And I did a little research on the game, and it seems like it's very influenced by Final Fantasy VII. It has that combination of pre-rendered backgrounds with the polygonal characters, that kind of similar storyline. Even the dialogue boxes that pop up are like blue with the white.
Sony tried to capture lightning for a second time.
Yeah.
So they had a huge hit with Final Fantasy VII. And so it's funny because they didn't really go with a game. They went with a game that was more fantasy-based than sci-fi-based.
Right.
Final Fantasy VII takes place in Midgar, this fictional town where everything looks all like cybernetic and yet really run down. And
it's like old future tech.
Yeah, basically. And I mean, people are driving around like crappy, beat up like huge, ginormous cars that look like something out of the 50s.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's incredibly gigantic cannons that can level a town with one shot.
So with Final Fantasy VII, that was the feel to it. It's like cyberpunk sort of feel. And so with Legend of Dragoon, when Sony was like, let's make Final Fantasy. And so they made a game that was more fantasy-based than sci-fi-based. And so it definitely is a huge difference. I think it did pretty well, especially in the US. The sales were really strong in the US. In America, it sold about 960,000 copies, and in Japan only 280,000, which is still a pretty good number for Japan, considering the size of Japan. Legend of Dragoon didn't really spawn any sequels or anything like that. It's just kind of remained one of those games that's always been like, do you want a PlayStation 1? You should play Final Fantasy VII. And then maybe check out Legend of Dragoon.
If you like Final Fantasy VII, you'll kind of like Legend of Dragoon.
So you play as these characters called Dragoons in this game. And so they all have different names. There's Dart, which is the main character, kind of like the Chrono or the Cloud of the game.
Dart.
And his childhood friend Shayna, which is pretty much a ripoff of Tifa and Luca and every other RPG.
Gotta end it with an A. You're not gonna know it's a girl if you don't end it with an A.
Yeah. Oh boy. So you play as these characters, and basically the story starts off with Dart heading home. It's always like something where somebody's either leaving home or going home. That's
with a character that ends in A.
Yeah.
Every video game is a character that ends in A. Castlevania had Simona,
yeah.
Mario's got Prince of Picha,
Rosalina.
Rosalina, you got it.
Daisy.
Princess Toadstoola.
Daisy.
Daisy.
Hi, I'm Daisy.
Oh, shut up.
The game takes place on this place called Endiness. It's Endiness.
Endiness.
What were they thinking when they came up with Endiness?
I don't know. What did they come up with?
They were like, well, we need the game to take place on a place.
Let's just use a Ouija board.
Yeah. Spirits haunt me.
All right.
Give me the names.
I'm done talking about Legend of Dragoon. Great soundtrack, mediocre game. I think that pretty much sums up our feelings
Just
on
go
it.
play Final Fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. But if you want a really good soundtrack, then play Legend of Dragoon.
Yeah.
And not that Final Fantasy VII has a bad soundtrack. It's just...
No.
I think Dragoon has more my taste as far as the battle themes are concerned.
Final Fantasy VII was one of the first soundtracks I ever bought.
Ah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah. Actually, I had 2 copies. I don't even know how that happened. I just remember
You loved it so much.
Yeah, I think I did. I think I loved it so much that I bought 2 copies of the soundtrack.
You listened to it so much, in your sleep.
And there were 2 different versions of the soundtrack, too. One was, I think, from Japan, and then the other one was from America.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how I did that.
Huh.
Yeah,
and it wasn't like one was arranged and one was the
No,
direct
they were the
OST?
same exact soundtrack, same numbering and everything.
You're
but
weird.
yeah, one of them is one of them has like the traditional art that Yoshitaka Amano did for the series.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's good
Cool.
stuff. Anyways, Saturday Morning RPG.
That's
is
coming
our
up
next
next.
game. Yeah, tell me about this. I know nothing of this.
This is an indie title, and I was originally going to use this track for our indie show 2 weeks ago, but I felt it fit a little more in with our RPG battle theme since I was struggling so much to come up with 5 tracks for me.
What do I do?
Yeah, well, this track is really interesting because the whole album was composed by guys who don't normally compose for video games. And so the concept of Saturday Morning RPG is that it's a role-playing game that borrows a lot from the 80s and the 90s and Saturday morning cartoon shows that were so popular with our youth. So you'd have things like you would collect scratch and sniff stickers to put on your Trapper Keeper, and you would have to scratch them to cast spells in RPG or in your battles. And the first kind of boss that you face off against is a direct rip-off of Cobra Commander. He's got the same. He's called Commander Hood. And it's really cool. It's got a lot of real throwback stuff and a lot of things that you would have maybe completely forgotten about from the 80s, and then you would run across it in the game and be like, I totally remember that. So there's
That thing
Transformers stuff.
doesn't have that name because I'm sure they didn't use the names.
No. It's all very alluded to. But
like
there are
that
robots
thing.
that transform into things that aren't Transformers, but
Gobots.
you get the
They're
hint.
Gobots, right?
Yeah, and all the Lisa Frank stuff.
Yeah,
with, like, unicorns and rainbows flowing out of their butts. And it's a really, really cool game. The battle is very interactive, so on if you want to cast a spell or do a particular move, you would get one of those golf meters where you have to push a button as the meter slides from left to right to get it in the red zone for the best chance of a crit hit. So it's not like you're just tapping buttons and letting things go. Other spells you might need to press the keys on the keyboard as hard as you can. So it's a lot of fun. It really keeps the battle fresh, and you can kind of do your favorite moves based on what kinds of things you like to do to make those moves and what you're good at. So it kind of adds a little bit of that personal skill into it as well.
And this came out on Steam?
It came out on Steam. It's PC only, so I don't think it's come out on a console.
Wow.
So you're never going to play it unless you get a good computer or whatever.
No, I have a good computer. Steam.
You just don't like PC games?
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. So Vince Dicola was the main composer with his co-writer Kenny
Megadeth. Kenny Megadeth.
Kenny Meriedeth. Vince Dicola, if you don't recognize his name, I'm sure you recognize his music because he wrote the music for the Transformers movie from 1986.
Good stuff.
Yeah. He also did the Rocky IV soundtrack, which was pretty cool.
Like the movie?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all really good stuff.
Yeah.
Very 80s, very synthy.
This is one of his first games that I think he's ever composed for. He had a couple tunes on Gran Turismo 5 as well. But this track is really cool. It's rock, it's synth, it's 80s and 90s and RPG battles all rolled into one. Let's give it a listen.
Yeah, let's take a listen to Battle Scene.
Takao. Has this ever happened to you?
Bye, honey. Off to work.
Have a great day, dear.
No, a random battle. And I'm already late for work.
Or maybe this?
Hey, honey, why don't you come to bed early tonight with me?
Sweet. Be right there, babe. No!
Random battles can be a real problem, especially when you're late for work or about to get it on. We here at RPG Genie have developed a fantastic new product to make life easier. Introducing Escape. This revolutionary new battle command will allow you to flee random battles. Guaranteed. Let's watch it in action. Gary, give me my arc welder! This dam is about to blow and take the whole town with it!
Hey, you got it, boss. I don't have time for this. Time to use Escape. Phew! Thanks, Escape Command.
The Escape command. Useful in almost any situation. May result in lower experience points and item inventory. Not for use on bosses and story battles. Use only as directed. That epic little piece was from Mario and Luigi Dream Team, which is one of the first 3DS songs we played, I think.
Yeah.
Which I would never even known about if I didn't get my 3DS.
That's true.
Which happened to have the Mario and Luigi Dream Team game already on it.
Yeah.
So
We have the same 3DS.
Yes.
And,
we don't share one 3DS.
yeah, let's be clear about that.
Let's delineate that.
Yeah, I haven't even played this yet. It
comes
digitally,
preloaded, yeah.
Preloaded, and I haven't even booted it up yet. And so anyways, this Mario and Luigi Dream Team song, it's very... I would say it's symphonic, actually. It's epic in terms of...
But it's got that driving beat
True.
behind it. And I just really wanted to play something from this game because I've been enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I got my 3DS delivered shortly before I went on vacation. So I started playing this game just, in the hotel room with my family and downtime between doing stuff on vacation.
Cool.
It's a lot of fun. I never played the previous Mario and Luigi games, but now I want to go back.
Oh, you should check them out.
Check them out, yeah, because I've heard they're really good.
Superstar Saga is excellent.
Yes.
That's a really fun game. I got really far in that, actually, and then I just kind of never beat it. Yeah, I should go back and play that.
With Dream Team, it's interesting because the whole premise of the game is that half of it takes place in the dream world.
Okay.
And so Luigi has this kind of special power where he can fall asleep on these special pillows, and then Mario would join him in Luigi's dream.
What do you think's in the pillow that makes him just pass out?
They're actually the pillow is a petrified character that you have to free from the dream world.
Okay.
So after you complete the dream world, the character comes up and you're looking for Princess Peach, of course.
Mm-hmm. So it's not like a pillow that's doused in NyQuil.
No. But as soon as Luigi hits the pillow, he instantly falls asleep. So
yeah.
It's kind of funny that way. And so Luigi has these special powers while he's in the dream world, and you see his face on the touchscreen on the lower half of the 3DS. And
he's doing the death stare.
His eyes are closed, but he would be death staring at you if they were open.
He's actually death staring despite the fact that his eyes are closed, believe it or not.
So you could do things like stretch his mustache, wiggle his nose to do special things to help Mario get through kind of a pseudo-platforming, pseudo-RPG battle style level that he's going through in Luigi's head. So that's the kind of premise behind the whole Dream Team deal.
That's you can't really do those things in the Paper Mario game. Paper Mario games are more traditional, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and that's why these Mario and Luigi games, actually all composed by Yoko Shimomura,
who
did this game.
Okay.
She did the soundtrack for Superstar Saga. She also did Partners in Time, Bowser's Inside Story, and then she did this one, Mario and Luigi Dream Team. And I just noticed that she actually did Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo as well. So that kind of ties all those together, at least from a soundtrack standpoint. Mm-hmm. Shimomura started off with a little bit on Final Fight back in 1989.
Woohoo!
She became most popular for doing the Street Fighter II arcade game with Isao Abe, and then kind of moved up through there and did Punisher, which you're a fan of, I know.
The Genesis version?
The arcade version.
Which is also
with
a Genesis
Isao
version.
Abe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very similar to each other because they're both FM. So
yeah, no, it's a fun game.
Live a Live Front Mission. She did Parasite Eve, Legend of Mana.
Parasite Eve is good.
Kingdom Hearts. She's got a lot of really powerful, really heavy titles under her belt.
Yeah.
So she left Square when she had her first kid and went freelance and then started doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So she started working on the Nintendo RPGs, Kingdom Hearts Reloaded, Xenoblade Chronicles. She's just got a ton of good music.
Oh, Xenoblade, such a good game.
Yep. So that's pretty much Shimomura in a nutshell. I mean, we've talked about her in the past.
Yeah.
Doing some other stuff as well, and I'm sure we'll play more from her in the future because she's got a lot of great stuff.
She does, yeah. You'll definitely hear from her in the future.
Well, it's the next track we're going to. Oh, this is Skies
of
of
Arcadia.
I'm not familiar at all with this game.
This is a really fun Sega RPG.
Sell it to me.
All right. So it's a Sega Dreamcast RPG. Also got ported over to the GameCube called Skies of Arcadia Legends.
Not interested yet.
They added a bunch of really cool stuff, like some extra boss battles and some extra characters, stuff like that. The story takes place in basically these floating continents in an area, or I guess a world you would call Arcadia.
A little more interested.
Hence why it's called Skies of Arcadia.
Okay.
And so there's this evil corporation or company or tyrannical militant area thing.
I like evil corporations.
Thing.
Okay, this is getting better.
Called the Valuian Empire. And they are seeking the moon crystals in order to awaken these things called the Gigas. And they will take over the world.
It sounded like you said the giggles.
The giggles. The giggles. Not the... No, it's...
Or the wiggles?
The Gigas.
The Gigas. Gigas?
Like Gigawing. Like
okay.
The game Gigawing.
Right on.
Yes. So you play as, I guess you could say, this pirate named Vice. And...
Everybody's got a Vice.
He's an air pirate. And so he's joined up with his close friend since childhood, Aika. And then...
Tell me about the gameplay.
So
Tell me on the gameplay.
The
storyline's not doing it.
It's an RPG through and through. I mean, you're going through with your party. It's a 4-character party that at one point in the game it splits into. So you're playing as with Vice and a character named Gilder.
Okay, so the kind of interstitial there? You're going from one area to another area?
Pretty much,
okay.
yeah.
That's
so
unique.
there's these secondary player characters. They're basically like the second set of characters.
Bravo team?
Yeah, Bravo team, yeah. Or like, like X-Men, the gold team and the blue team.
Right.
Yeah. And I've only played this on the GameCube. I didn't get extremely far in the game, so I don't know like too much about the what ends up happening in the game.
You fell asleep.
Yeah. Well, like I said, RPGs, I mean, they take a lot out of you. And by that time, I was in college when I played Skies of Arcadia Legends. And it was one of those games that I picked up for, I think $20 when I worked at a game store, just because it didn't sell. And so Sega dropped the price relatively quick, despite the fact that it was actually very well known on the Dreamcast. And
well, it was one of the few RPGs available on the Dreamcast.
No, that's true. And I mean, Sega did all the work. The soundtracks were composed by Yutaka Minobe and Tatsuyuki Maeda. And so we have talked about these people before. Maeda-san worked on Sonic 3, Sonic & Knuckles, Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, or Sonic 3D Blast, Super Columns, Astral, Sonic Advance 1, Sonic Advance 2. Also did some work for Nintendo with Yoshi Topsy-Turvy. Yoshi Topsy-Turvy. And of course, Knight's Journey of Dreams, the sequel to Knight's.
Right.
So, done a ton of work. Yutaka Minobe, we kind of talked a little bit about before. Also a big-time Sega composer. Worked on the Sonic Advance, the first 2 games at least. And then Rhythm Thief, Sonic Generations, Sonic Lost World for more recent stuff. And then Astro Boy, Nightshade. Nightshade, not the NES game, but the PS2, sexy shinobi type game.
Yes.
Which was, I really liked that game. That was a fun game.
So these are not really RPG games that these two have worked on.
These two have definitely worked on more upbeat platformer type games.
But this seems to be more of a traditional RPG style soundtrack.
Yeah, and also it's this just shows that these guys have a ton of variety. I mean, they went from Sonic Advance to Space Channel 5 in one step. So this is definitely through and through a orchestrated feel to it. It's got a little bit of a
tympanic drums in the background.
Yeah, the drums are very I wouldn't say techno. They're more I don't know, maybe drum and bass a little bit, in the background kind of doing stuff on their own. A little more modern, yeah. Yeah, a little bit more of a modern feel to it for the drums, but the music itself is absolutely it's just one of those like wispy kind of like, you know, let's go on a journey type of songs.
Yeah.
So
snooze fest for me.
So this is Battle Theme 1 from Skies of Arcadia. Check it out. It's a cool track.
Enjoy.
Alright, welcome back to PixelTunes Radio. That was a really good song.
Yeah, that was from Langrisser 2 for the Sega Genesis. dang, man.
Yeah.
That whole soundtrack is fantastic.
I like how we went out with a bang.
Yeah, and with some Genesis stuff. You know, I don't think we got enough chiptune goodness on this episode. A couple of Super Nintendo tracks, but you know, a lot of it was more the more modern stuff.
I really like this track. It's definitely balls to the wall, headbanging action.
So this one was called The Last Battle, and obviously plays during the last battle.
No.
Yeah. Certainly epic enough to make you proud to get to the last battle.
And the rest of the game's music is really good.
Yeah, and it's very long too. Mm-hmm. It was composed by Noriyuki Iwadare and Isao Mizuguchi, both of whom have very long histories with video games. Iwadare has done most of the Langrisser series. They're up to, I think, Langrisser 5?
Oh, wow.
I think in 97 that was the last one that was released. Mm-hmm. But he's done Glay Lancer, that shoot 'em up for the Genesis.
Every time I hear that, I'm just like, you mean Grey Lancer.
Right, yeah, I know. I think if it had an American release, that it would have been called
Grey Lancer, yeah.
But you know, you get a lot of that Japanese mistranslation going on there.
Grey Lancer.
Yeah, so he's done some other RPGs like Grandia 3, he worked on Mega Man X7, Aliens vs. Predator, some of the Wing Commander games, Lunar.
Cool.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, the game, the movie, the book, the manga, the series. Yeah, so, you know, tons and tons of stuff. Excellent at FM Synth. Yeah, I mean, the sound driver they used for this game was pretty rad.
Yeah.
And then Mizuguchi doesn't have as much under his name. He did Ranger X for Genesis. That was another side-scrolling shooter. He also worked on Lunar the Silver Star. So this game is more of a strategy game with RPG elements. Yeah, you're moving lots of guys around a battlefield and kind of strategically placing them in different areas. And it's got a long and varied storyline with a lot of canonical elements that I just can't be bothered with.
Yeah.
Man, this one, I found out about this music because Mental Hog from my forum thread, this was one of the songs that he pointed me towards when I was begging people for some help with putting together some music for this episode.
Well, thank you, Mental
Yeah,
Hog.
I want to thank him.
Yeah.
Because then I went and sought after the entire soundtrack and made my own, and man, I'm going to listen to this one for years and years and months and decades.
Yeah.
I'm gonna raise my kids on this soundtrack. Be like, this is your goodnight theme. I'm playing the song. You know, you're gonna know Langrisser 2 before you get into high school. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Thanks, 6 packs a day, Ed.
Seriously. That was my elderly Ryo Hayabusa voice.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all we got for our Battle RPG episode.
This was
I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, actually.
This was a fun theme. I'd like to thank me for flying Airways. Yeah.
Mike Tendo Airlines.
Yeah,
So anyways, thank you very much as usual for listening and sitting through our ridiculous explanations for these wonderful video game musics that we've probably insulted for the last 90 minutes or so.
And tell us what your favorite Battle RPG songs are. We want to know because, hey, maybe we'll do a second Battle RPG theme.
RPG Battle Volume 2.
Yeah,
We'd like to hear your ideas for future video game music themes for our episodes. We'd like to hear what you thought of the episode. Go give us a rating on iTunes. Check us out on Twitter at PixelTunes Radio. Check us out on Facebook at PixelTunes Radio. Visit PixelTunesRadio.com. We make it so easy for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we could make it like alshotdogs.com, but you know what? We don't, because we want to keep it simple, and Al wouldn't like that.
We spent good hard cash money on PixelTunesRadio.com, so you can come and check us out over there.
All right, well, I'm going to go back to sipping on my PixelTunes Radio mug.
Do that.
So, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace out.
See you later, ducks.